Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Talk Connected. We are a podcast here to inspire, to educate, to empower. We are here to have real life conversations with a community of real online people. My name is Virginia Murray. I am a licensed professional counselor. I'm also the owner of Progressive Perspective Counseling, LLC, a private practice counseling business here in the state of Delaware. You can find us at www.progressiveperspectivecounseling.com. So, I'm also an author, right? I have a book out called The Completion of Self, which can be found at a lot of major bookstores. It can also be found on Amazon. Who doesn't use Amazon? So, let's get into it. So, today on Talk Connected podcast, I want to talk to you about number one, self identity, and number two, self advocacy. So, when I talk about these things, right, what comes up for me is talking to a lot of people about people pleasing too, right? People pleasing is a lot more profound out here than what a lot of people think. Sometimes people are people pleasers. Say that 5 times. Sometimes people are people pleasers without even knowing it until it is brought to their attention. So I have a couple of points that I really just wanted to go over today, right? So the first thing that I really wanted to go over is understanding self-identity. And a lot of times when I pose this question, I like to ask people, here is a great journal reflection task for you to write down. I ask people, who am I outside of my roles for other people? So I'm going to say that again. Who am I outside of my roles for other people? And when we think of roles for other people, we think of our expectations that other people or other roles have for us. So, for example, at work, an employer may have expectations for you as an employee. So you get a list of job duties and responsibilities, and those are your expectations. And at work, you are required to fulfill those roles. So at work, when someone says, describe Martha, right? Martha is hardworking, dedicated. She answers the phones. She, talks to the clientele that comes in. Martha is professional, but that is not who Martha is at her core, right? It's not who Martha is in her character. There's a different type of self-identity in there. So what I'm asking you overall is, how would you identify yourself when someone asks you, who are you? Tell me a little bit about you, right? I'll use myself for an example. There have been plenty of times where I felt confident, in the past of who I was. But when someone said, okay, tell me a little bit about yourself, who are you? Out the window. My mind goes blank because it's just like, okay, I know that I am a employee. I know that I am a sister. I know that I am a daughter. I know that I am a friend. But outside of all these roles that I have in my life, how would I describe just me? Just who I am, my character? Like, what would I say about me? What do I enjoy doing that brings me fulfillment and satisfaction? And we know that our roles are very important. Our roles are very important and connected to our self identity. But what we are to other roles and other people should not be in totality the fulfillment of who we are. There should be so much more to us. And when you think about that question, who am I? What is my self identity? When I look at myself and I see me, what and who do I see in me? What and who do I see in me? Not what other people have said that they seen in you. That's important too, because perspective is important, but I want to know what you see inside of yourself in this version of you, who you want to be in the next version of you. Who do you see when you look at you? Do you see someone that gets fulfillment from and joy from, helping others? Do you see someone that is happy right now? Do you see someone that is frustrated? Do you see someone that is angry, broken? Do you see someone that you don't even know who this is staring back at you because of the trials and the heaviness of life lately? You ever been through a season in your life where you have looked at you and you don't even recognize you? And you say, who am I right now? I don't even recognize the person that I'm looking at in the mirror, so to so speak. I would never do those things. I'm acting out of character or beside myself. Sometimes there are moments, in life where we have to take a moment and say, who am I? How do I get to a self identity in understanding truly who I am? Because that's where fulfillment comes from in our lives. Sometimes we have to look and we have to explore our values. We have to explore our passions, our strengths, authentic traits. When I say authentic traits, what I really mean by that is the things that really don't change. They might change a little bit about us, but they don't change. For example, if you've ever heard someone say, I'm a very loyal person, those are kind of concrete, authentic character traits. I'm a loyal person. I'm an honest person. Certain things where you can look at someone and be like, oh, they've always been honest. They've always been loyal. They've always been kind or giving. Those are authentic traits. And sometimes we want to explore those values and traits in ourselves to help build on understanding the foundation of our self-identity, right? So it is a lot of layers that goes into understanding who you are, roles, expectations, authentic traits. But when I look at myself in the mirror, who do I see or who do I want to see? Right? So another thing is sometimes when we look at how we can shape who we want to be and be a foundation, we also have to recognize that who we are and our identities sometimes is shaped by other people or other experiences that we have with people or just experiences in life in general, right? So how do we recognize this? External pressures, cultural norms, or past experiences can distort your sense of self. So let's talk about experiences though. Have you ever gone through a situation and you've ever said, you know what, that situation changed me? Or if it has not been you, somebody, whereas you've seen that they've changed or they've been changed by a situation, or they have told you that situation changed me, right? So that could be heartbreak. You ever see somebody warm-hearted just because of a heartbreak or someone hurt them or broke their heart? Now all of a sudden they are cold-hearted. They are shut down. They're just cold-hearted, and that warm-heartedness in them went away. Or grief. Sometimes the complexities of grief can cause us to shut down and someone to just look at you and say, you are not who you used to be. Your energy just isn't there. Your joy is not there. Your happiness is not there. Grief can cause a person to shut down emotionally, mentally. And sometimes, yes, they can still be functioning throughout life, okay, but sometimes they are just not the same person as they're functioning through work or parenthood or whatever other responsibilities they had. So grief is another situation that can change us and who we are. Job loss. Sometimes people can lose a job or something important in their lives, and it discourages them. And even though they may find another job, that one job that maybe they were committed to, they felt like that was, their purpose. They felt like they were supposed to be there, and they are let go and they lose that job. or the job, closes and they no longer have that thing that made them feel purposeful, it discourages them. And when some people get discouraged or hit a bump in the road like that, sometimes it's hard to find encouragement again and motivation again to feel purposeful. So these are just a couple of changes and external factors in our lives that can also shape our self-identity and who we are. But when you go through heartbreak and maybe you turn cold hearted, when you go through grief and you shut down, or when you go through something like a job loss or a loss of something with purpose in your life and you feel discouraged, that is temporary. It will only be there as much or as long as a time as you allow it to be there. When you find healing and you go through the process of finding yourself again and finding who you want to be, the version of you, and moving forward, those things are temporary. You just have to find healing and resolution from it to find your joy again, to find your peace again, to find encouragement and motivation again. But that space will be there and become a comfort zone as long as you lie in it, as long as you allow yourself to sit in it. It is not until you come to a realization of, I don't want to be this person anymore. I don't want to see myself as this. I don't want these dark clouds or this heaviness hanging over my life anymore. I would like to do something to change that because I would like to go towards this newer version of me. And sometimes you have to say, well, what do I want? What do I want in life? Happiness, joy, love, peace. And that is the road that you go down to saying, okay, well, let me make a plan. Let me make a plan first to acknowledge and process the space that I'm in, but then to make a plan of how to get to where I want to get to find a renewed sense of joy and happiness and peace and love in my life. Right? So not only is our self-identity shaped by what we want and who we want to be and our expectations of ourselves, but our self-identity along the way in this road of life can also be shaped by negative experiences that we endure in life or that we go through. So one of the things to understanding self-identity as well is understanding the power of your own story. Speaking on these life situations, right? These unexpected situations that we go through. The power of your own story can help you develop more of a sense of identity, more of a sense of owning self and transforming those experiences and those situations into your purpose and intentionality in life, right? Embracing your background, your struggles, and growth as a part of your identity rather than something to hide. I speak with a lot of people, right? And when I say embracing them instead of looking at them as something to hide, I can't tell you how many people I speak to. And when I speak to them, they identify strength and what they go through in life as being able to be strong and being able to carry the weight of what they go through and still put a smile on and still look like and appear to be happy to other people, even though internally they are struggling. So instead of embracing life circumstances and turning it into the power of their own story and self-identity, they just carry, this is the analogy that I give people, they just carry this big boulder, right? They carry this big, imagine a person with this big boulder in their hands and it's heavy and their arms are weighing and their shoulders are starting to hurt and their back is hurting just a little bit. The longer they carry these struggles and challenges and this heaviness and this boulder in their lives, the longer they carry it, the weaker you become. But a lot of people put this mask on, right? And it becomes this thing to where it's like, I can show people how strong I am. So the people, the loved ones in your life, or other spectators, right? They just see you carrying this big boulder or just holding this big boulder, and you're smiling. And they can all like look at you and admire you and say, oh my gosh, they're so strong. Look at them. They're just carrying all those things. And they still got this smile on their face. They are the they are the strongest person I know, right? But you're struggling internally despite what it looks like on the outside, externally. You're struggling. And I tell people the strongest thing that you can do is not carry that boulder, but the strongest thing that you can do is to put it down and embrace your vulnerability of showing people or showing yourself that you are strong enough to put down the heaviness that you have been carrying. And you are strong enough to acknowledge it, process it, sort through it, chip away at it. Because you should not go through life just carrying the heaviness of something because of how strong you are and people admiring that type of strength. But the type of strength that you can admire and other people can admire within you is that you had the courage to set that heaviness down, sort through it, and turn that heaviness and negative circumstance and situation that occurred to you in your life, whether it was something that you did or whether someone did it to you. You can take that and you can sort through it, heal, find resolution, embrace the positive impact that it had on you through your healing process. Because that thing may not have been positive, but the fact that you overcame it and you healed from it gave you a different type of strength. And because of that strength, you could embrace that encouragement and that motivation, and you can turn it into the power of your own story. Right. So I told you, and I mentioned in the beginning that I have a book out called The Completion of Self, a book of healing by myself, Virginia Murray. Right. That book, I use myself as an example here in what it means in owning and embracing the power of your own story. So I wrote that book. I sat and I struggled, right? For years. That book turned from one thing to another thing to another thing. I think at first it started out as an autobiography of my life and my struggles and my challenges. And then I was really led a different way. And then it was like I deleted all that and I turned it into a reflective book of healing, right? It's a self-reflective book of healing. And it gives reading passages of encouragement and understanding of life struggles and challenges. But then it also gives the reader a chance to process their own emotions and feelings and write on the other side of it what they're going through and how to change that and turn that around. And why I bring this up is because I mentioned in one of my videos on this podcast that I went through a 10-year domestically violent relationship that I was in, and how I almost lost my life a couple of times. And I made it through and I went through my healing process. And then I thought I was healed and I had to, found out that some more things were revealed in me that I had to continue to heal from. Right. And after I had went through my final stages of healing, and I was signed, sealed, and delivered, I tell people. What happened was that book and publishing that book was just like my way of encouraging other people to do the same. That book was me embracing the power of my own story and healing and being able to be a light that could encourage other people. That was a way that I found my strength. After healing, I took that story because for so long I hid behind that mask, right? Nobody knew what had happened to me. Nobody knew what I was feeling on the inside. Nobody knew my story and my struggles and my challenges and what I had gone through. And it wasn't until I took all that and I healed from it and I lumped it in and embraced it as my own story that I just felt this freedom. and I began to see who I was. And that book helped me find my self identity and who I could be to other people and myself. It is when we mask our stories and our challenges that we cannot be a light and touch other people or discover who we are in our own selves. But there's a certain freedom. And I'm not saying go out and blast your business to all the world, right? But there is a certain freedom in being able to just speak it out loud, if not to other people, to yourself. Speak it out loud to yourself. What happened to you? What have you been holding on to? What negative circumstances have impacted you, and turn that into a story. You don't have to write a book, right? Writing a book is not for everyone, but turn it into some kind of outlet for you to where you find your own sense of freedom and self-identity, right? And maybe you do have a couple of people that you could talk to, or that you could, be a light to, or you can motivate or encourage them and pass it on. Because sometimes our healing is not just to sit in the limitations of our own selves. We find understanding of us in it. We find understanding on how to help other people with it. But there is just a process. It's just a process that happens when we can put that boulder down and we can step into the vulnerability of a different type of strength rather than carrying it and hiding behind a wall and, not embracing it as a part of our journey in life. We didn't ask for these things to happen to us. I didn't ask to be physically harmed. I didn't ask to almost lose my life. I didn't ask for heartbreak in life. I didn't ask for the challenges that came my way, right? If I had it my way, which is like a lot of us, we would have said, no, thank you. Skip to the positive part. I want joy. I want that happiness over there. Let's just ease on by that and get to that happiness. We don't ask for the challenges that we get in life. And it can be cruel and unfair. But I thank goodness that you are still here. I thank goodness that I am still here, and we have a story and self-identity to find so that we could be the best version of us that we can be, right? So in self-identity, it is understanding who you are, defining who you are beyond roles and expectations, recognizing your identity may be shaped by circumstances, other people, what's done to you, what you go through in life, and understanding the power of your own story and how to embrace the healing part of that and turn it into understanding who you are and how you can influence and impact others or the world around you. So, self-advocacy. Let's talk about self-advocacy. Once you kind of develop a sense of self, how can you advocate for yourself? These are where those people-pleasing skills come in from what we talked about in the beginning a little bit. For self-advocacy, first, here's the first step, right? Again, understanding. First, you have to understand your needs and your non-negotiables, right? What does that mean? It means you have to identify what you require emotionally, mentally, professionally, and personally to live, right? And when we say identify what you require, it is identifying rational and realistic expectations of self and other people in your life that you can control. Because there are certain things that are outside of our control that other people may do and say, but what is inside of our control is after they do and say those words or behaviors, how we respond to it. And people pleasing sometimes, right, can look like just adhering to what other people say or making excuses for other people or saying, well, you made me mad, but because I'm mad, you're mad. What can I do to make the situation better? Right? And it was never on you to make the situation better because of what someone else did to you. Someone else hurt you. But you have this tendency to want to make things right and make things better and to please the other person or the situation just because you don't want to feel the negative feelings that are associated with it. Self-identity is also using your voice confidently. So what does that mean? Using your voice confidently is learning how to speak up in relationships, workplaces, and challenging moments without guilt or hesitation in an appropriate, non-conflictual manner, right? We want to speak up for ourselves and we want to advocate for ourselves without feeling guilt or hesitation, but it has to be in an appropriate manner that is non-conflictual, right? And that just means, it's a fancy way of saying effective communication skills. I want to be able to express myself without, feeling like maybe I didn't say it right or feeling like I could have said it better or saying it just in an impulsive way that leads to conflict or argumentation. So we want to say things in an appropriate way. Let's give an example, right? So in the workplace, you can have you can advocate for yourself and set boundaries. Let's just say you are always the person that someone comes to say, "Hey, I know that you can get this done. Like, can you make time to help me with this project?" Everybody comes to you to help them with this one specific project because they know that you're competent in it. However, let's just hypothetically say you are not the person that should be doing the project because you have your own assignments to take care of. But because everyone comes to you to fulfill or help with or assist with their issues on their assignments, you then fall behind on your other assignments, on your assignments that you have to turn in on time with the deadlines approaching. Right? So one thing that I tell people to do, or I encourage people to do, is have your voice heard in the workplace by saying, "Hey, I don't have time because I have to get done my assignment, on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, but on Thursday, maybe I'll have some time for you." And if you don't want to feel the pressure of looking at your calendar in that moment, you could say to people, "Hey, let me take a look at my calendar. I'll get back to you if I can help you or not. But there's a resource page on the bulletin board. If you take a look at that, there might be someone else that you could, talk to, or even a guide to help you with your assignment." And then that gives you a space to kind of look at your calendar and let them know via email, via text, via however you do it, if you're able to help them or not. But you have to use your voice to advocate for yourself. And in that case, it's advocating for change and taking other people's responsibility off your plate so you're not stuck in that people-pleasing role. So that's a way you can advocate for yourself in a workplace. A way that you can advocate for yourself in a relationship dynamic. Let's just say you and your parent or your grandparent. Let's say your parent has an unhealthy codependency on you and they always need you for something. And instead of just saying, "You know what, I'm tired of helping you. I'm not going to help you no more. You just keep needing me for this thing. I'm over it. I'm tired." Instead of saying it that way and offending someone or causing conflict or argumentation, we can use effective communication skills and say, "Hey, mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, I know that I've been this for you for a while. It's really taking a toll on me. Can we get such and such to do it? Can we see if it's okay with them? Or, can we look at other resources and see what can be done about it and how we can help?" So you're not leaving the person hanging, right? Because we never want to leave our loved ones hanging, but you're saying, "Let's see if there are other options." And you're expressing to them how you felt about it. So you want to advocate for yourself. What is self-advocacy, right? Advocacy is change. It's change. And change is it's a positive change, not a negative change, because advocacy means using your voice, speaking up for yourself, setting boundaries. I have another episode on this podcast that navigates, the basics of how to set boundaries and what are boundaries. Take a look at that episode. It's going to be very useful, right? So self-advocacy is creating positive change in your life so you can continue to build the self-identity that you would like to build in yourself. So say it's almost like that thing, saying no. Say it's okay to say no. And when people say that, it's not like we just want to go around saying no, 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 no. We're not gonna just go around saying no to everyone and being unkind and being rude. When we say it's okay to set the boundary to say no, we mean inappropriate circumstances, and we mean just creating limits that prioritizes your well-being and is an act of self-respect. So you're doing things that create positive change in your life to show more self-respect towards you and to prioritize your well-being. So it's okay to say no in an appropriate way. And in a way that you are prioritizing you and respecting yourself and creating positive change in your life. So, how do you take self-advocacy and self-identity and integrate the two to continue to build on the version of you that you want to build on? Right? Because there are barriers as well. And one of the barriers that I get from people a lot is when I say no, or when I tell a loved one that I can't help them anymore, but we look at, other resources and outlets. I hear that there's a guilt, right? There's guilt, there's hesitation. I feel bad. Well, creating positive change in your life does not emotionally always feel good because you're being disconnected from something that you've been for someone, right? For quite some time. Or that you have just been like in this role and you were feeling useful. So when you disconnect yourself from feeling useful, when you disconnect yourself from someone depending on you for something, you now feel guilty for stepping out of that thing. But you have got to focus on, you know what? I did my best to connect them to other outlets, other resources. I didn't just leave them hanging. And this is going to be good for me. It takes a weight off of me. Now, there will be instances where we may have to say yes to people, right? We may have to say yes to people to help people out in certain circumstances. Even if we're tired, even if we're exhausted, I'm going to help. I'm going to be kind and I'm going to help. When we talk about setting boundaries, advocating for yourself, saying no, those are those routine, all the time, draining, exhausting, just depletes me type of, I can't keep doing this behavior. I can't keep engaging in this. This is taking from me. And it's not building me up in a healthy, positive way. And it's starting to impact or impair my mental health. Right. So that's one of the barriers or one of the negative feelings that people may feel with self-advocating and finding self-identity. But you have to kind of say, okay, I understand that these feelings of guilt are temporary. The more you help out in the best way that you can, and the more you set yourself boundaries for self-advocacy and saying no and building self-identity, and you prioritize your well-being and yourself, the more that those feelings decrease, and the more you start to feel happiness, relief, freedom, and joy, and just overall a healthiness in your own mental and emotional health, which can impact your physical health feeling good too, because you won't be feeling as exhausted, as depleted physically. You'll be feeling a little bit more well rested, right? So those are some things to consider. So integrating self-advocacy and self-identity, right? How knowing yourself makes self-advocacy easier. How knowing yourself, which is a self-identity, makes self-advocacy easier. When you understand who you are, you can better fight for what aligns for you. And when I say fight for what aligns for you, I mean advocate for. change. Fight for that change that aligns for you. When you have more of a sense of who you are and identity, when you can look at yourself in the mirror and say, I know exactly who I am. I know exactly what I'm destined for. I know exactly what I'm purposed for in this version of who I am, because we talked about purpose can change in the different versions and seasons of you and life. Purpose can not only change, but it can be built upon and expanded, so when you look at yourself in the mirror and you can say, I know exactly who I am. I know exactly what I'm doing right now in my life. I'm still navigating and figuring some things out, but overall, I have a sense of a knowing of who I am. Then you can stand up for and better advocate for who you are and what aligns for you. You can better say, no, that's not for me, or yes, that's for me. You can better say, I'm going to go this way, or I need to make that decision, and no, I'm not going to go that way. So having a greater sense of self-identity helps you be aware of what aligns with how to advocate for yourself and the change that you need in your life. Right? And you can better also align your choices with your authentic identity. So ultimately, you can better make decisions that reflect your values rather than getting other people's external approval. Right? So I no longer need to people please and get other people's approval of, what I'm doing in my life or how I'm handling a situation, but I can make decisions that reflect a knowing of who I am, and making those choices I'm advocating for myself. Right? And we talked about the last point that I want to make is growing into a stronger version of yourself. So having a understanding of self-identity, being able to advocate for myself, allows me to continue to have growth into a stronger version of myself. Self-identity and self-advocacy reinforce each other to help you become more confident, grounded, and empowered. So today on Talk Connected podcast, we talked about self-identity. And we talked about understanding who you are, understanding how things, people, experiences, really shape us in our self-identity, looking at the version of us of who we want to be and how to plan to get there, the power of owning your own story and embracing the healing process of the change and challenges that you've gone through in life. And then we've also talked about building self-advocacy skills, right? Self-advocacy meaning creating positive change in our life, understanding our needs and non-negotiables, understanding our voice confidently and who we are, setting boundaries, prioritizing your well-being and your self-respect, and integrating the two into one, because they align with each other and can help you navigate life into continual growth of who you are and where you're going. So thank you for tuning in to another episode. I love having these real life conversations with this online community. Continue to tune in. We will continue to have episodes where we really dig into just life challenges, how to overcome them, dealing with issues and problems, and also if there's something that you want to hear about on this podcast, please put it in the chat. We can have a conversation on that. Again, my name is Virginia Murray. I'm a licensed professional counselor. I also am the owner of Progressive Perspective Counseling, LLC. It's a private practice in Delaware. So if you have any inquiries about that, check out our website at www.progressiveperspectivecounseling.com. There's an email on there. Please feel free to utilize that if you have any questions, if you want to know about mental health, if you would like to inquire about a subject topic that you want to hear on Talk Connected. Otherwise than that, I hope that you have a beautiful, beautiful day, and I'll see you next time.